隣人ニュースを申し上げます。隣人ニュースを申し上げます。That's harder to say than you think. What's up, everybody? D-Man back. Welcome to a brand new video. And to celebrate the fact that I am now officially caught up on Godzilla Minus One news, it is time to jump into a special news report all about Toho's upcoming Godzilla film. In this video, we will be covering everything we know about Toho's next Godzilla movie, from all of the interviews director Takashi Yamazaki has done talking about what he would like to do next in the world of Godzilla to the actual Toho announcement of it and when we can expect to hear more official details. So without further ado, let's jump into the first special news report for Godzilla Minus 2, which is what we're calling it as fans. We don't know what it's going to be called yet, but that's just what we're going to call it for now. Let's do it. Starting out to quickly celebrate the idea of a Godzilla Minus One sequel, Atomic Goji Photography did this Godzilla Minus One Raids Again artwork. This is awesome, featuring Godzilla fighting Anguirus. It's so cool. Love the flames going off. Love the perspective with the castle, just like in the original film. Super cool. It's awesome to see Minus One in a fight like this. He did a minus color version of it as well, and didn't stop there, as he also did a Godzilla vs. Biollante artwork. This one's awesome, with Godzilla's spines lighting up, Biollante looking great. This is a fight so many of us would like to see, and with Noriko being the way she is, potentially being infected by Godzilla, this is a likely contender on where things could head in the future that could be very interesting. So that's awesome to see as well. And then Tom Dot Arts did this Godzilla Raids Again Minus One style artwork with Godzilla taking on Anguirus. It's so cool. Love this art. Oh, it's so great. Love that it's in the ocean. It's so cool. Anguirus is looking sick. It's a great redesign. I thought this one was awesome, and so I wanted to show it off. To quickly recap, why are we even getting a Godzilla Minus 2? Well, first of all, money. Godzilla Minus One broke box office records like crazy. It became the highest grossing Japanese Godzilla film of all time, surpassing Shin Godzilla. It surpassed Shin Godzilla at the domestic box office. It had the highest domestic opening for a Japanese live action movie. It was the first foreign live action film to top the US box office charts in a single day since 2004, and so many more. It also won award after award after award, including the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects. That speaks a lot. And overall, people generally really liked it, and there was a lot of talk about a sequel. Now, Shin Godzilla was also a very well-received Godzilla movie. We do know that Hideaki Anno did pitch a Shin Godzilla sequel, and Toho didn't really like the direction he wanted to take the story in. So when Yamazaki got the opportunity to come back, it kind of gives us an indication that wherever he's wanting to take this story is still in the same ballpark as what Toho is wanting to do next, which is fantastic to hear. Shinimato Yurei did a Godzilla Minus One featurette to celebrate the film's release in Japan as well as its expansion overseas all the way back on January 12th, 2024. During this, director Takashi Yamazaki revealed his desires to direct a Godzilla Minus One sequel, but didn't elaborate very much on where he would take it. But as of January 12th, that was our first official indication that Yamazaki wanted to return post Godzilla Minus One. Not much later, while talking to the Japanese press, Yamazaki opened up about what his initial idea for a sequel would be. When asked if he could do another Godzilla film, what he would do, he stated, "My honest feelings, I would like to see a continuation of those people's stories. If I could make it, I would like to make a movie that involves what happens after that, the events of Minus One." In an HJ Webb interview, Yamazaki opened up about what that next story would look like. He says if he gets to do another Godzilla movie, he wants it to be a sequel to Godzilla Minus One. He then states, since there have been 2 solo Godzilla films in a row, he wants to introduce an enemy monster in the next one to keep it fresh. We know director Takashi Yamazaki recently shared out a Godzilla Minus One fan film he really loved, including Mechagodzilla, and while I don't think that's an indication Mechagodzilla will appear in the next film, if he does, he's got to look out, and not just from Godzilla, because as we know from watching these films, Mechagodzilla is really vulnerable to data leaks, and he's not the only one, which is why I'm incredibly excited to announce today's sponsor. As many of you know, at the start of December, my computer was hacked, and with it, nearly 8 years of online activity was potentially compromised, which is why I'm excited to announce that today's video is sponsored by Aura. Aura is an app that lets you monitor and control what private information is shared online. Whether you, like me, are the victim of a hack and a subsequent data leak or not, it can be truly frightening how much of your personal information can be found online. Back in high school, my friends and I would Google family members of ours all the time, and we're always shocked with how much information of theirs was out there without them having any clue, from names to addresses to phone numbers. And from the national data breach, which happened in 2024, exposing nearly 3 billion personal records, to data brokers legally buying and selling your data, we're all in this together. Luckily, Aura can monitor and identify some of these data brokers and submit opt-out requests for you so they can't sell your information any longer. This includes opting you out of junk mail and reducing the number of spam calls you get. That way, when you get an unknown number coming through, you don't wind up missing an important call just because you assumed it was a scam. Their security breach and dark web monitoring can help keep you informed on if any of your data winds up where it shouldn't, and can help give you steps to take in case it does. I cannot tell you how much peace of mind that feature offers. The app also features a VPN, a password manager, an antivirus that can help protect you against malware and ransomware, and real-time credit and identity theft monitoring. That is so much to offer in one affordable app, and I am so thankful that Aura is there to keep an eye on my data when I'm not. So stop leaving yourself vulnerable to data breaches. Go to my sponsor, aura.com/dman to get a 14-day free trial and find out if any of your data has been exposed. Links down below. Thank you, Aura! Further elaborating on the idea of Godzilla fighting an enemy monster, director Takashi Yamazaki addresses the elephant in the room. He explains that by adding another monster for Godzilla to fight, the human story instantly takes a backseat, and we have seen this time and time again, and no matter how hard directors try to put the emphasis back on the human story, for one reason or another, it never works out the way they intend. There are quite a few Godzilla movies that absolutely nail it. In my opinion, a lot of the early Showa films kill it with a great human story and a kaiju story, but a lot of the time that also compromises the more serious tone. Yamazaki says he loves to see Godzilla fight other monsters, but hopes to one day resolve the balance of having Godzilla be able to fight another monster while maintaining the core human story and emotion there within. He says he wants the kaiju to battle, but he also wants the human story to remain at the center of the film, and from everything we have seen, he wants that center of the film to remain tonally intact with Godzilla Minus One. That is going to be a really tricky thing, but I feel like there's a very compelling path through that. For me, I feel like the solution to this is to make the concept of the film trying to get us to root for the monsters not to fight because of the devastation that would bring to our human characters. Therefore, when they do, yes, we as an audience get to cheer in the monsters battling, but at the same time, it carries an intense emotional weight to it that most Godzilla films don't always bring home. Finally, opening up about the details of his potential Godzilla Minus One sequel, Yamazaki says he wants to continue the story of the characters from the first film with the full cast returning, so hopefully not a situation where it's like everybody but Mark and Madison is gone. Now we're only getting 2 returning characters and they're gonna be kind of sidelined. I'd like to see a continuing story with our characters in a Godzilla movie, so that makes me very excited. Or like when I will never forgive the fact that they send Akane off, they just get rid of her. She's supposed to pilot Mechagodzilla. Why did they sideline her in Tokyo SOS? One of the best Godzilla protagonists? Anyways, it's good to hear that director Takashi Yamazaki is on the same page. He says he hopes that another studio, maybe even one in the US, would assist him and join Toho in aiding the production and giving the movie a bigger budget. Simply put, Japanese budgets are incredibly small and incredibly difficult to work with. He says if that happens, he would love to use an international cast with A-list actors and actresses. For instance, he loved the movie Oppenheimer so much, he'd be interested in working with some of those actors. Once again, he reiterates that because there have been 2 solo Godzilla films back-to-back in Japan, it is time to see the Japanese Godzilla take on an opposing monster once again. I think regardless of if the next film winds up being a sequel to Godzilla Minus One or not, I think this is the core of Yamazaki's next film. It is going to be an intensely human-driven Godzilla story where Godzilla takes on an enemy monster. Speaking with Empire, Yamazaki opened up about a lot of details about his potential sequel, including directly addressing how it could relate to the ending of Godzilla Minus One. Yamazaki notes that he's been thinking about where a sequel could go for a long time, a lot longer than before one was ever announced. He says he's curious to develop Shikishima and Noriko's future, saying that he would explore that in depth. He notes that Shikishima's war seems to finally be over and that we've reached a state of peace and calm. But, as the direct quote goes, perhaps it's the calm before the storm, and the characters have not been forgiven for what has been imposed upon them. The broad idea here is that while Shikishima's war may finally be over, However, Godzilla's is not. Godzilla cannot forgive humanity, and so he will be back. Calling back to the iconic line at the end of trailer 1, which was actually 2 lines spliced together from the movie Godzilla Minus One, that monster will never forgive us. Again, Yamazaki emphasizes that he wants to tackle the challenge of creating a serious tone in a kaiju versus kaiju movie with a human drama. He says the easy thing to do is to just make the movie an emphasis on spectacle. Let the monster fighting take over and don't really worry about the story. The more challenging thing to do is, while feature monsters fighting, still focus on the core drama. He wants us to remain attached to the core human component throughout the entire film. The goal would be to find a way to give meaning to both the human and kaiju drama at the same time, having one affect the other in meaningful ways that both develop the plot and relationships within. As I noted back in my original video when I covered this topic, my personal examples of Godzilla movies that pull this off the best would be movies like Mothra vs. Godzilla, GMK, and maybe something like Godzilla vs. Biollante, or even Godzilla vs. Destroya. After winning the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects for Godzilla Minus One, Yamazaki was interviewed by the press, during which they asked him if Godzilla Minus One was a response to Oppenheimer. Yamazaki explained that it couldn't be. They were made at the same time and they were released so close to each other that there's no way Oppenheimer could have influenced Godzilla Minus One. But he was a really big fan of the movie Oppenheimer and would like to dedicate a future movie to tackling the themes of Oppenheimer in a sort of response. Now, whether or not his next Godzilla film is going to be said response, I think it will absolutely have influences by whatever it is director Takashi Yamazaki took away from watching Oppenheimer, and that I do think is very exciting. While being interviewed by Toho Kingdom, Yamazaki got very in-depth on what might come in a Godzilla Minus One sequel because he was asked a lot of questions that were relevant. Starting out, he reveals that Toho was not the one that made Godzilla Minus One a solo film, despite many rumors coming from the United States. Yamazaki was the one who was passionate about this specific story and wanted to make it this way because it's simply the idea he had. There is no Toho mandate to keep Godzilla films solo Godzilla movies over in Japan because they're more prestigious, as has been widely misreported by US fans. Yamazaki says he wants to introduce a diva superstar kaiju that already exists for Godzilla to take on in a sequel, but as of February 2024, he had not picked who that kaiju would be. He says that he wants to take his time with the sequel to make sure the CGI technology he has access to has gotten to the point where he can bring the story he has in his head to life. In other interviews, he's revealed that he actually has been waiting since before Shin Godzilla to make Godzilla Minus One because he simply did not feel the technology was up to par with his vision. This will become important later. He says his main challenge in a potential sequel would be to try and keep the audience focused on the human story and drama while the monsters are battling. To keep the story grounded would be the biggest struggle. He wants the film to find a solid balance between the human story and monster battles, and says that the script is going to be the thing that takes the most work to get right, and he's not going to move forward on a movie unless he's absolutely confident he nailed the script. So it's exciting to know that he will be moving forward with a new movie. In a follow-up interview, Yamazaki revealed that Godzilla might not be the last of his kind, and that it's an unexplained mystery of the film, potentially to be explored in a sequel. So one theory is that Godzilla could take on a second Godzilla in a sequel, and that's a big thing that could lend some credibility to that. Yamazaki says one reason he won't confirm too much about the ending of Godzilla Minus One with Noriko, or even if there are more than one Godzilla in existence, is because he wants to keep speculation alive and healthy, and also because he doesn't want to write himself into a corner. If he's going to make a sequel, he doesn't want to reveal too much right now, therefore locking him into ideas that he's not completely sold on. He also makes it clear that if he got a sequel with no limitations, he would want all the same characters back and the same story to continue. He stresses that this is his idea and that it might not happen if Toho doesn't want it to. Yamazaki directly addresses how he's surprised that there are so many Anguirus fans out there. He says it's interesting to him that people want Anguirus back so bad, and that he wonders if it's just because his film is so closely related to the original. He wonders if that's the reason fans are so vocal about Anguirus now more than ever. He also will not comment on if that's the direction he's going to take the next movie, but he does chuckle about Anguirus a lot, making it seem like it's probably not. I have heard rumors from Japan, and I will say they are just rumors, but I have heard rumors from Japan that Anguirus will not be in the next Godzilla movie. So to all of us hoping, as I understand right now, probably not. That's not to say that he absolutely won't be, that's just to say that from what I've heard, probably not. Maybe in another movie, but it sounds like from what they understand, it isn't going to be the case. Although, like I said, a rumor, so take it with a big grain of salt. At New York Comic-Con, Yamazaki opened up about Noriko's survival at the end of Godzilla Minus One. He explains that she originally died in the first drafts of the script, but he just didn't think Shikishima deserved to be punished after spending so much of the movie trying to find a way out of his grief. Yamazaki eventually landed on the ending he did. When it came time to film the scene, he didn't think it was convincing that Noriko had just survived on her own, and so he included the mark on her neck. back. The ending wasn't planned, and Yamazaki decided he needed to film it just in case he needed to justify her survival in the edit. Once he saw the finalized CGI of Godzilla's atomic breath blowing up Ginza, he realized that he needed to complete his alternate ending of Godzilla Minus One, showing the Godzilla curse in Noriko as a way to justify her survival. Yamazaki has also revealed that not only good things await Noriko in the future, and that there will be a lot of darkness ahead of her. She will be permanently affected by Godzilla, and it's not just going to be a happy ending. That kind of implies to me that wherever he's going to take a sequel, it might not be directly related to whatever is going on with Noriko. That might be a secondary plotline in the movie, considering it was an alternate ending idea that he didn't even put in the script, and so her surviving wasn't even planned, let alone her being cursed by Godzilla. So is it really going to wind up in a spot where she winds up becoming mutated and becoming a Biollante in the sequel? I don't know. Maybe that's what he kind of found while writing the sequel. I would expect whatever's going on with her is going to be thematically linked to the main plot, and there will be some relationship with that to the main story, but Godzilla versus the other monster might be its own separate event. Who knows though? Who knows? Very importantly, when asked if he could remake any Godzilla movie, which would he pick, Yamazaki gives a definitive and very quick answer: Hedorah. He says that Hedorah was really far ahead of his time, and only now technology has caught up to the idea for Hedorah. Remember earlier how I said Yamazaki didn't want to move forward with Godzilla Minus One for nearly 10 years until he finally got the technology he needed to pull it off? Well, if he's got a vision for Hedorah that he doesn't think has ever been achieved in a movie before, that he thinks technology is finally caught up to, it's very possible now is the time to bring Hedorah back. Hedorah is also a monster with great thematic weight. Hedorah is a monster that you can easily do a lot with. It's also a monster that can play very well into the tone of Godzilla Minus One. Many of us feel that you just get rid of the alien origins for Hedorah, tie him directly to Godzilla, make Hedorah some sort of horrible mutation created by Godzilla's nuke in Ginza, or some sort of horrible offshoot of Godzilla trying to regenerate on its own, or maybe even something going on with Noriko transforms her into Hedorah. I don't love that idea. I think if there's any monster she could turn into, it would be Biollante. I don't love the idea of Hedorah. And personally, I don't even really love the idea of Biollante. But the important thing is, it seems Yamazaki has an idea for Hedorah that he's passionate about, and while he announced this was at New York Comic Con, the same exact time he filmed the announcement video that he would be back for the next Toho Godzilla film. And that is right, just days later, an emergency announcement was revealed. Takashi Yamazaki returning as writer, director, and VFX supervisor for the new Godzilla film. Yamazaki followed up with a little special announcement announcing his return, which was filmed at New York Comic Con. Many people have noticed it's filmed right where the beast from 20,000 Fathoms comes on land, although I don't think that's entirely relevant. And then Yamazaki followed up on Twitter announcing, "I will do it." Shortly after this, he also revealed that he met with US producers, including Marvel Studios president, probably Kevin Feige, about making films here in the US, including maybe a Marvel movie, but he had to turn them down in order to work on the next Godzilla film. Does this mean that Yamazaki's dream of maybe collaborating with a US studio finally came true? Who knows? It's possible, but I think that is unlikely. But it's cool to know anyways. Most recently, on January 15th, Toho reshared the Takashi Yamazaki announcement and updated their bio on their YouTube channel, announcing that information is coming soon. Rumors in Japan have started to circulate that news will break in February, and that we will know sooner rather than later what the next Toho Godzilla film is gonna be. It's very important to note that Toho did not announce a Godzilla Minus One sequel. They announced the next Godzilla film will be directed by Takashi Yamazaki of Godzilla Minus One. There's also been reports from Toho that they felt like they really didn't know how to move forward without him after him winning the Oscar, and there being so much buzz about Yamazaki in particular. So maybe they wanted a new story. Maybe they wanted something brand new, and they just felt like, hey, we've got a guy who delivered a great movie, let's see if he'll do it for us, and Yamazaki took it up. Or maybe they said, what do you want to do next? And he said, I want to do a Godzilla Minus One sequel, and so they said, let's do it. I have heard, again, rumors, that there's not really much credibility to just me saying that, but I have heard it will be a Godzilla Minus One sequel. That's what I'm aware of, and that's what I am hoping for. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. It seems that information will start to trickle here in February. I would expect this summer to be the summer of announcements. And that's all there is that we know as of right now about Toho's next Godzilla movie. That's everything Yamazaki has shared about what he would want to do with the next Godzilla film. Right now, the biggest theory is that Hedorah will be the opponent based on that New York Comic Con interview. We do know if Yamazaki's way goes through, Godzilla will be fighting another monster in this next movie. It will be a follow-up to Godzilla Minus One with the same characters. Yamazaki has also revealed that however much time passes in real life is how much time he would want to pass in the -1 universe, so we're looking at potentially a 2 to 3 year gap between movies, placing us in the early 50s, I believe. That's at least where he would want the story to start. It's possible he does the time jump thing again, and who knows where we wind up. We might jump to 54 just to make it more tied to the original film. I could see that happening as well. I'm very curious to see how the world of Godzilla Minus One develops, especially the US's relationship to Japan following that. So there's a lot to be hyped about, man. Well, that'll do it for this one, you guys. What do you want to see in a Godzilla Minus One sequel, and what of this news has gotten you the most hyped? For me, it's just the idea that Godzilla's gonna fight an enemy monster. I'm still holding out hope that it's Anguirus, even though I've been told it probably won't be, but you never know. I'm excited to see where they go regardless. But I want to hear what you guys think. Comment down below and let me know. I would love to hear it. As always, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. It is through the support of the patrons on Patreon that I'm able to continue to make videos like this for you in the first place. If you want to support the Patreon, you can use the link in the description below where you can get early access to content, access to the Discord community, and more. If the Patreon's not your thing, please consider joining the YouTube members thing, which most of you guys don't seem to have the button to do that yet. I don't know what's up with that, but the YouTube member thing is live. You can get access to custom banners and emojis that will make your comments much easier to see and also let you engage with this community in a more exciting way. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you all next time for the next one. D-Man out.